God bless you. Please let's
Amen.
welcome Reverend Lade Olugbemi, um,
Hallelujah.
CEO, Nurse Organization, and this one is grace in this calling, and you can attest to that by reason of the first seminar we had, and we thank God, and we are believing God for today that is going to be phenomenal by the grace
Amen.
of God. Please
Amen.
welcome. God bless you.
Amen.
If
Amen.
you want to show your face, but I like to see this face. But if you decide not to show,
Amen. Praise God.
it's okay. But let's just make her welcome. I think let's hear the sound.
Yeah.
Praise God. God bless you. You are welcome. God bless
Thank
you.
you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. It's a great honor for me to be back in the house. Can you hear me? Is this loud enough? I'm trying to shout.
Yes, ma,
It's
it's loud enough.
fantastic. It's a great honor for me to be back in the house, and I want to first and foremost thank God, the greatest orchestrator, the one who connects us. And I would also like to thank the father of the house, that's Pastor Gara Shukwu. Thank you so much for bringing me back. It takes the Spirit of God, it takes humility, it takes the ability to hear God speak, which is very, very deep. A lot of people hear God, but they don't hear Him speak. So they hear Him speak in so many diverse ways, but they don't hear Him speak to them directly. And I'm so grateful that you have tuned your ears to hearing what God has for the church at this present moment. We all know that the whole world is going through a pandemic at the moment, but I dare say that there is a greater pandemic that is ahead of all of us. But it's a pandemic that we can prepare for. This pandemic is the pandemic of the life between hell and heaven. We all know what that is. But there is a pandemic as well that is following the pandemic on this earth, the pandemic of the mind. One thing the Yoruba say, my apologies to those who are not Yoruba, there is a proverb that says that Ogun asotele kò kí n parọ́. That is when there has been a prophecy about that is coming. A layman would be spared because he is known about it. It's running. While all the able-bodied people are still there, justificating and doing everything normal, the layman who knows that the same ability as every other person has gone ahead and is already running. And that, I believe, is one of the things that God has given, is one of the abilities God has given to those who are tuning in the spirit to hearing God. And I'd like to first start by reading Proverbs Chapter 4, verse 7. It says, wisdom is a principal thing. It's a very common scripture that a lot of us quote it. And what does it mean when we say wisdom is a principal thing? You know, it did not say go and seek knowledge, because there's a difference between knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. It said wisdom is the principal thing. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. So you can have all of the knowledge in the world, but if you do not apply it, it's totally useless. So what we're here to learn today is knowledge. But can I please say to all of us, including me that I'm speaking, I'm only a vessel, because oftentimes when I'm speaking to myself as well, I'm preaching to myself as well, that we should pursue wisdom. That is the application of what we're here to learn today. I want to thank God for the mother of the house, Pastor Abiola. Thank you so much for taking good care of our daddy. He's looking very robust. Thank God. Thank you. And of course, I say thank you to every other person in the house. Thank you so much. Thank you for bringing me back, because if what I'd said the first time, if it did not resonate with you, you probably would not encourage Pastor to bring me back, because you just say, that woman was too boring, John. Please don't bring her back. You know, let's bring somebody else to talk. I am so grateful that God has allowed him to hear. And one of the key things that we talked about when I spoke the last time was around the various aspects of mental well-being. Like I said, mental well-being is a vast topic. You can talk about depression, anxiety, eating disorder, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, psychosis. You can talk about them all in 1 hour. But today we're a lot more relaxed because most of us are not rushing elsewhere. I'll try and pack everything. There's a lot that we're going to have to learn about our mood and our food. That was one key thing. And also for those who did you fill the feedback form? Thank you so much. I want to say thank you for the 18 people who filled the feedback form. I'm really grateful because it will help not just me, but also Pastor Dara, the skills gap are, where the knowledge gap is. What should he, what does he think, or what he would look through it prayerfully and look at what areas that he can use to feed the sheep that God has given him. Feedback is an important tool that we all need to use in our process of growth. That's why for those of us who work, we know that to get an annual appraisal, we get our annual PDR, the performance development reviews. We do all of that. The same way in the church, we should be able to review. If there's anywhere where wisdom should reside, it is in the church. We should be the example. The world should actually typify everything that we do in the church. So I go back to what I said earlier, Proverbs Chapter 4, verse 7.
Wow.
It says that wisdom is the principal thing. What does it mean by wisdom being the principal thing? It says wisdom is the divine insight concerning how we should live our lives and what brings success. How should we live our lives? One of the ways in which we need to learn how to live our lives is by this body God has given us. The Bible tells us to present our bodies as living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God. When you talk about this, oftentimes most of us think that holiness is when you do not fornicate, when there's no adultery, when body. It is a lot more than that. The presentation of our bodies includes what we eat into our body, how we take care of this body. Do you know, my brothers and my sisters, that it is a sin when you abuse your body? Do you know that it is a sin when your body? Do you know that gluttony is a sin when you overeat? These are things that we're going to try and break down this evening. We all have a responsibility to keeping this body, because this body should serve us until the Lord calls us home. And put that at the back of our mind. So what we're talking about today is about our mood and our food. The first time I know that usually when I talk about, do you know that there's a link between the food we eat and our mood? Most times people struggle with it. They find it difficult to understand that. Oh, what do you mean? You mean when I eat okra, it can affect my mood? Do you mean when I eat a banana, it can affect my mood? Indeed, it can. And I'm going to, like I said the first time, I think in my first life I was a teacher. I love to show things because usually with remote working and with remote working and also with a lot of us doing a lot of things virtually, it sinks in more when we see things on the screen because it helps us all to flow. So what we're looking at today is the relationship between our guts, and by gut I mean GUT, and our mental health. What's the relationship? How are they linked together? And some scriptures here, just to give us as a background, because what we're saying, everything has to be founded on the word. The Bible tells us that our life revolves around in him. Anything we do outside of the word has no foundation and it is fruitless. There's no reward for it. For me, everything has to revolve around the word, and that's the way I look at it. So Genesis chapter 1 verse 39 says, and this was when God spoke to Adam. He says, I have given you every plant with seed on the face of the earth, and every tree that has fruit with seeds. This will be your food. 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 31 says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. How many of us actually do pause sometimes when we reach out for that sugar and we think in our heart, are we doing this to the glory of God? Is this bringing any bit to my body? I'm just using this to satisfy my human cravings. We should have this at the back of our mind. Majority of what I'm going to be saying today is actually based on these scriptures. And Romans chapter 14 verse 20 says, do not destroy the work of God for the sake of food. All food is clean, but it is wrong for a person to eat anything that causes somebody else to stumble. And can I just rephrase that little part? It is sin or it is wrong for anyone to eat anything that will cause sickness to their body. It is wrong if we eat anything intentionally, especially when you've been told that will cause sickness to our bodies. I'd just like to give the ground rules like I gave the first time. I know that usually when we talk about mental health, it's a very It's a very it's a very it's a very emotional topic. I know that there's the likelihood that some of us here may be struggling with food, struggling with various things. As we go along, if anybody wants to send any message to me as I talk, please send a message to me in the chat box privately. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions later. There's going to be an answer and question session later. Because I won't be able to pause, like I said, today's teaching or session is jam-packed. I won't be able to pause to take questions, but I'll take questions after. But I'd venture I'm saying something that you want to ask a question about, just type it in the chat box. If you don't want everybody to know that you're the one that's asked the question, just send it to me privately. So if you click on the chat box and you scroll down, you see my name and you can click on it privately, come to me privately, and I'll answer the questions later. And if anybody feels, you have, like I said the first time, I like interactive classes. If anybody wants to pause and just ask me a question, it's okay. I mean, let's go ahead. We're all here to learn this evening. And like I said the first time as well, I'm not an expert. I'm here to learn, just like you're learning here as well. I'm here to learn. We're all here to learn and benefit from each other. Are the ground rules okay for everybody? Okay, if it's okay, just give me the thumbs up and I'll know that it's okay. If you have any questions, please don't worry. Don't forget to type them to the side. I am very much in recognition of the fact that some of us have issues with food. We're going to talk about that later. But the main thing we want to talk about today is about our food and our mood. Why are they linked? Why do we need to talk about it? It's because what goes into our mouth can actually impact our mood. There's this very common adage that we know. It says that we are what we eat, and that is the truth. We are what we eat. The composition of who you are today, a lot depends on what you were fed when you were young. Sometimes, I don't know, I'm a parent. My kids are all very grown up now. But I look at kids that were born about the same time that my children were born. And I see a lot of difference in kids that were fed with some type of food and kids that were fed with a different type of food. The way their growth is different. So for those who breastfed their children, you realize that for those who breastfed their children, the rate at which the children grow is faster. This is empirically proven, this is scientifically proven, that breastfed children are a lot more intelligent, which is the truth. And then they're not as susceptible to infections like children who are not breastfed at all. So we are what we eat. Food is an inevitable part of our lives. And many people are only concerned about eating to stay alive. We should not eat to stay alive. No. It's something that we need to try and reverse the cycle. Oftentimes, those who have a not too positive relationship with food is because their concept of food is really wrong. We should not eat to stay alive. We live and we eat. Food is a part of our being. We're going to talk about that later. We need to realize that there's more to eating than just surviving. By finding the relationship between what we eat and our mood, we can as well find a solution to some of the numerous mental health problems that many people go through silently. So for a long time, I wasn't really aware of this fact until about 5 years ago, that there's actually a very strong link between what I eat and how I feel. I didn't know that. Eating a diet that is well-rounded and nutrient-rich can actually help to improve our mood. It can increase our energy levels. I'm sure that a lot of us may be aware of that some food actually does help to increase our energy level. It helps us to think clearer as well. There's several elements at play here. The amount of carbohydrates we eat, to the way deficiencies in vitamins and minerals affect our mental health. It is really, really important for us to recognize this. Carbohydrates and eating regularly. So one of the key things I would like us to note this evening is that one of the key things about regulating our mind is that your eating pattern has to be regular. So I know that a lot of us fast. We live very fastful lives. And I do know that within the fasting, there are regulations as well that God expects us to observe. Eating regularly is a function that your body needs. Of course, we can fast once in a while. But however, when we come back from fasting, there must be a cycle, a pattern to our eating. our bodies get regulated to what we feed it with. So you can't have breakfast today at 8 o'clock or between 8 and 10, and tomorrow you don't have breakfast, or 3, 4, 5 days you don't have breakfast, and suddenly you now have breakfast the 6th day. Do you know that you starve your body, or you've taught your body to conserve? So by the time you eat the food, the body goes into a different mode, entirely different mode. In order for our brain to be able to concentrate and focus, it needs energy. Do you know that 20% of all the energy needed by the body is used by the brain? I didn't know this before, that actually when you sleep, you actually burn calories. Yes, indeed. We actually burn calories when we sleep. There's just this general conception that I had before that, when you are sleeping, at least you're not moving your body, you're not straining yourself, so you're not burning any calories. No, we're actually burning calories. Our brain burns calories. It's a fact that 20% of all the energy that your body is used up by the brain is used by how far and how fast and how deep you think. This energy actually comes from blood glucose, the glucose in our blood from the carbohydrate that we eat. When we don't have enough energy for the brain, that's when we feel weak, we feel tired, and we're unable to think clearly. I don't know if anybody has been there before. I'd just like to ask, has anybody been there before where you have been tired and suddenly your mind goes very blank? Like you're hungry, but you're tired, but suddenly your mind goes very blank and you can't process things very clearly. That is nature and your body telling you to pause, to think. Sometimes dehydration causes when we're not drinking enough water. That's really important for us to recognize. Dehydration sometimes causes it as well. And that is why it's really important for us to recognize the of the regularity, regulating the times that we eat and the type of food that we eat as well. It is really, really important. Eating a diet that is well-rounded and nutrient-rich can help improve our mood, increase our level, and it can also help us to change the way we think, our thinking processes. It can help us to change our thinking process as well. You ask me, is that possible? I tell you, yes, it is possible, because it has been empirically proven. I'm going to be talking about some studies that have been done later about how people who were fed a particular type of diet actually improved in their intelligence. When we don't have enough energy for the brain, like I said earlier, we feel weak, we feel tired, we're unable to think clearly. So we need to ensure that we eat regularly. We need to ensure that we're eating very regularly. That is really important, that we're eating regularly. And the food that we eat also contains carbohydrates. I'm going to try and balance that out a little bit later, because I remember that one of the things I said last week was around the type of diet that we eat, especially us Africans, that our diet is very carbohydrate rich, carbohydrate. Well, there's some type of carbohydrate that is beneficial and some that are not exactly beneficial. But we're not kicking carbohydrates out. You need some element in carbohydrate, you need it. Then like in foods like pasta, rice, there are sources of carbohydrates. Make sure that we balance it. The type of carbohydrates that are really healthy and very good are the whole grains, they're the fruits. There's some carbohydrates in legumes, so we have some carbohydrate and low-fat dairy. When your blood glucose rises and falls rapidly, it can have an impact on your mood. And then it makes us very irritable, very low in. And do you know what? It can actually trigger symptoms of anxiety. It does. So one of the carbohydrates that is very healthy for us to eat are oats, the carbohydrate that is in oats. We need to try and shift our food to the carbohydrates that are slow release. So for some of us who eat oats in the morning, oats is fantastic in the morning. Oats, cereals, nuts, and seeds. Eat them in small proportion and space them out throughout the day. Don't just eat one big diet like that, one big plate. Portion control is another thing I'm going to be talking about. But today we're not talking about dieting or anything. We're speaking specifically around our mood and our food, how they're very much related together. I'm going to quickly talk to us about some of the foods that we have that can improve our mental well-being. And there are 5 types that I'm majoring on. Of course, there are lots more than 5. We have more than 5 foods. So when I say 5, don't just measure on that, because it's actually more than that. One of the key things that dietitians say to us is that a lot of those who suffer from heart diseases, diabetes, they're actually quick, they're very quick to want to change their diet. So what the GP would often do would be to refer the person to see a dietitian. Well, how often do we see people who suffer from depression or anxiety? But to say a dietitian, no. And this is one of the things that I'm talking about when I say raising awareness about mental health issues. One of the key things that we need to, like I said earlier, Proverbs Chapter 4, verse 7 tells us, wisdom is a thing. Everything is there in the Bible. We need to think retrospectively about our lifestyles. It is our God, what God owes us is the Bible that contains all the pointers and not the lights to all the ways He wants us to walk. One of the key things that we can do in managing anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues, and other cognitive issues, I'm going to talk a little bit about dementia as well, is our food. We can't actually regulate our food. People rarely associate mental health with food. It is very rare. So that's why when we talk about, mental health and food, people are usually very surprised that, why? How can what I eat affect my mood? Of course it can affect our mood. It certainly can. Foods that improve our mood, I'm going to mention some of them. And of course, during the question and answer session, if you have any questions, don't forget to post them by the side. You can ask me questions, and what I can answer, I will answer. What I can't answer, I will tell you I can't answer, then I'll come back to your contact to give you the answers to them. There are lots of studies that are tracing the relationship between the food that we eat and our mood. Look, there are lots of nutritional elements that are indicated with mood regulation, especially those that decrease the risk of anxiety, bipolar disorder, and depression. The 3 key mental health issues that food has been proven to help to regulate: anxiety, bipolar disorder, and depression. There are loads and loads of studies backing that up. We cannot ignore the fact that other factors may play significant roles in a person's mood. For those who were here at the first session that I had, I remember mentioning very clearly, and I'm just going to open that. I'm going to open that slide for us to see, because I did mention that other factors can affect us. Other factors can affect who we are, and so yes, food is important, but however, there are other factors that can affect our mood. And for those who were here, you probably would remember this screen that I put up, as the fact that we have biological factors that can affect our mood, genetic factors, brain chemistry. The brain chemistry sometimes are things that could be triggered off by, sometimes it just happens and you don't have control over it, it just happens. Sometimes life experiences can actually trigger off things that would affect our mood. If a person has suffered from trauma, abuse, if a person has a family history of mental health problems, if a person is isolated, loneliness. Remember, I mentioned all of these things. I don't want to dwell too much on it, but I remember mentioning all of this the first time. So I just need to kind of put a balance to that yes, I'm talking about food. I'm talking about the fact that our food, our mood is very much linked to what we eat. However, we cannot take away the fact that other elements can actually affect the neurotransmitters in our brain. But however, there are specific types of food that have been found to play a prominent role in neurotransmitters that we have in our brains, which includes dopamine and serotonin. For those who don't, dopamine is a chemical, dopamine, serotonin, they're the chemicals that, they're the feel-good chemicals, if I can use that word. They determine, if you have it high, then you find yourself being very good. If you have it very low, you find your mood being very, very low. There's an alarming rise in the cases of mental health disorders. There is. I don't know whether you've seen it out there. Never have we seen the number of young people experiencing mental health issues in the history of the world. It's like there's a big deluge out there. And if you remember when I gave the last presentation, I talked about the fact that 50% of mental health issues that occur later in life, they actually show before a person is 14, before a child is 14. and 75% actually show before a person is 24. And that is why it is important that the food we give our children are balanced, so that we put in their system, we put all the necessary nutrients. Please, parents, aunties, uncles, guardians in the house, let us run away and avoid feeding our children junk food. These are no foods that would help to prepare them, make sure that they have the necessary nutrients in their body. Every year, people are spending so much money on therapies. It's gulping a lot of money. These are money, or these are investments that can be avoided if we did the right things in the first instance. That is, if we ate properly. Of course, don't forget, like I said already, that the balance is that there are other factors that can affect our mood. But however, do you know that food is the only one that we can control? Genes we cannot control. Trauma we cannot control. Abuse we cannot control. But out of all of the various triggers, our food is one that we can all control. We can control them. The interest in the relationship between food and psychological health has increased globally in the last few years. And studies are already suggesting that this should be incorporated when we talk about positive mental well-being. And that's why I'm always so excited to see people like, you know what? There's a big link between your food. I'm also a mental health coach. And what I do by mental health coaching a person is people are experiencing depression or extremely low mood. Put them in sessions where we talk through the issues. And one of the key things that I always recommend are some key things we're talking about this evening. Your food, your diet matters. It can improve your mood. So, so we're going to be talking about 5. They're quite a long list, but I've just majored on 5, and I'm happy to read them out later. I'm very conscious of that, so I'm trying to go through very quickly because I think it's important for you to be able to ask necessary questions as well. Strawberry is one of the sources of antioxidants. It's rich in food. How many of us buy strawberries when we go to the shop? One thing that I've noticed is that, for those of us who go to the supermarket, there's some foods that Africans don't normally buy. Am I right? Please, if I'm wrong, tell me. How many of us actually buy strawberries when we go to the shop? How many? A lot of us walk past blueberries, strawberries. And can anybody shout out the popular African fruits that we always buy, that we eat? When you go to an African house, tell me the type of fruits that we usually buy.
Apple.
Apple, yes.
Bananas.
Bananas, yes.
Pineapple.
Pineapple, okay. A lot of Nigerians, a lot of us are buying pineapple now because of the content of the back. A lot of us cook it now with ginger and lemon and lime as an immunity boosting drink. Okay, so apple, banana. Well, how many of us actually do buy strawberries? How many of? Sorry, say that again.
It's more expensive.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It's more expensive.
I hear you. But if we look at the value of what some of these things contain, and I'm going to go back to the screen now, about the cost of the amount people are spending in maintaining mental health issues. I don't know if anybody has done. It's £50 for a session of therapy. £50. If you want to wait on the NHS, you have to wait 6 months or 8 months. And by that time, a person's mental well-being may be complicated. If you want to go private, you're paying at least £50. When you look at the value, don't forget what I said earlier, that God has given us this body. We have a responsibility to keeping it. I tell you that there's a party tomorrow, and there's asteroid B, and the asteroid B is £50. Would you not all contribute to it? And this is an asteroid B that you wear just once, and oftentimes most of us we don't wear it again. But this is the vessel that God has created for us. We need to try and maintain a balance. Strawberry is one of the best sources of antioxidants. The process of oxidation is necessary for the cells of our body to produce the energy which the body and the brain needs to function. And that is why you need an antioxidant that would help all the cells in our body to produce energy that the brain needs to function. So you want your brain to function well, invest in antioxidants. However, this is a process that also leads to oxidative stress, which occurs mostly in the brain. The level of feel-good chemicals decrease due to oxidation, with a resulting decreased mental health. Fruit rich in antioxidants are fruits, and they also help to reduce damage of oxidative stress, and they mop up the free radicals, that is the damage to our brain cells. I'll list out later antioxidants that you have. I'll list them out. In actual fact, I've mentioned one of them. There's blueberries, there's blackberry, strawberry. Most of the berries are antioxidants. And then you have them in some fruits as well. So that is one. Like I said, I can't go through all, but I'm going to be on five specific foods that are very good for our mental well-being. Omega-3 is another one. I know that most people who are watching their weight, they say, oh, I want to run away from fat. I don't want fat. I don't want fat. But do you know that there's some fat that is good for the brain to develop? Yes. The main sources of omega-3 fatty acids are nuts, not just our groundnuts. I'm going to be talking about the other types of nuts later, not just our groundnuts, they are nuts. Cashew nut is very good. Fish oil is good. Eggs is good. Leafy vegetable especially, they're very, very good. And these are polysaturated fatty acids. They're important for the health of our brain. And indirectly, they would affect our mental health. Yes, we often think that, okay, mental health is about our mind, but do you know that what constitutes your mind is what the chemicals in our brain? And that is why I know we want to talk about how to bind this demon, bind that demon, and all of that. But for as long as we walk into the enclave of ignorance, the result of ignoramus act will follow us. When we continue to eat the wrong type of foods, it will affect us. We can pray against it from today to tomorrow. It will definitely affect us. It's like saying that a woman that is pregnant 3 months, oh, the pregnancy will reach 9 months. This pregnancy will not reach 9 months. We stop at 3 months. It's not possible, because the law of nature is that 9 fetus stays in the stomach, and after 9 months, the fetus starts to prepare to leave. So there's some laws of nature you cannot change. And for us as Christians, wisdom is the principal thing. We need to seek it. So our omega-3 do not drop. There's this quote that I put here. It says that our focus on low-fat diet may have also inadvertently affected our mental well-being. Oftentimes we think, oh, I want to avoid fatty food. I want to avoid fatty food. These are foods that give us all the omega-3 that we need. This is salmon. Salmon is very good. How many of us eat broccoli here? How many of us eat broccoli in our houses? These are fantastic foods. Thank you. If you eat broccoli, well done. Well done. And there's some other seeds here that we need to learn how to eat, and also to put them in our diet daily. It's really important. Protein is another one. This is still under omega-3. Protein is another one. Alongside the energy that carbohydrate gives us, our brain needs amino acids to help us regulate our thoughts and feelings. Protein is found in meat, fish, eggs, nuts, seeds, cheese, soya products, and legumes. Not all fat is bad for us. I just need to say that. Not all fat is bad for us. And if you have children in the house, especially teenagers, the girls especially, will be like, no, I don't want to eat any fat. I don't want to eat any fat. It is okay to eat some good fats. Healthy fats can be found in nuts, I already mentioned, poultry foods, avocado products, and also eggs. And the third one that I'll be talking about, probiotics. If there's anything that should be in our fridge, all of us, we should always make sure we have yogurt in our fridge. Do you know that our gut reflects what is up here in our brain? Our gut, as in our alimentary, our system, our stomach, it determines what is up here in our brain. Probiotics we should always have in our fridge. They are like organisms. And when it is ingested, it is in sufficient amount, it can have a positive effect on our body. Probiotics are another one. They're compounds that are selectively digested by the beneficial organism. There's a relationship between our gut and our mood. I said that earlier. There are different types of probiotics, but in general, Greek natural yogurts are fantastic. As much as possible, try not to buy the non-fatty one, because what happens is that they've denatured it. Buy the full fat one and just eat it in a measured way. The fourth food that affects our brain and affects our mood and our mental health is vitamin B. You know, I didn't realize this until about 2 years ago. And this is me, I've been talking about mental health for a while. When you take vitamin B, especially vitamin B2, B12, it's actually called the happiness vitamin. Vitamin B has been found to be a precursor molecule for the production of chemicals in our brain like dopamine and serotonin. It helps to elevate our mood. So one of the key things that I know most GPs do, with no disrespect to our GPs, you know, I love them, they're doing a fantastic job. One of the things they do when you go and you talk about you've been low mood, you've had it for 2 weeks, they're very quick at jumping to prescribing antidepressants. Whereas there's some other supplements that can be used and there's some other therapies that can be used. Food therapy is one that we can actually use to reduce the effects of stress, to reduce the effect of anxiety on our brain. There are studies that suggest that high folate vitamin B12 and B6 in diet can cause depression. This vitamin can be found in beans, vegetable, beetroot, and banana. Somebody mentioned banana earlier. Do you know that one thing that you would always house, and my children always make fun of me, is banana. Banana is a mood lifter. It is fantastic. Sometimes when you are down in mood and you're not very clear, your thinking process is not very clear, just eat a banana and be intentional about it and watch how your mood elevates. Deficiency in vitamin B can actually stall the production and release of certain brain chemicals, which can adversely affect our mental. On the other hand, increasing the amount of vitamin B intake can increase the level of neurochemicals, and happiness is a side effect of the production of these chemicals. The last but not the least I'm going to be talking about, of course, I've talked about iron, vitamin B, folate, selenium. The last but not I'm going to be talking about is sugar, polysaccharides. Oftentimes when we hear the word sugar, everybody just runs to, I think, oh, sugar, I don't want to touch sugar. But do you know that our body needs the complex sugars? And by complex sugars, we mean the natural sugars. These are the ones that actually, when broken down, they release energy for our body and our brain. So there are two types of sugar. There's a complex sugar and the simple sugar. The simple sugar, what it does is that our body does not need to do much work in breaking it down. It rushes straight into our blood. It rushes straight into the blood. And that is why people say, oh, I need a sugar rush, I need a sugar rush. But the complex one, it takes a while to release the energy. The simple ones are the ones found in snacks, sweetened drinks. They actually do elevate the mood, all right? Yes, they do. They give you a burst of energy. But can I say that that effect is just temporary, it's not for a long time? The impact on the brain is negative, because what it does is that it increases the production of insulin, and it increases the risk of diabetes, which is something that we need to watch against. I need to talk about 3 specific types of mental health issues that I believe that we can help to regulate by food. I know that I've mentioned depression a lot, and I've mentioned a little bit around anxiety. Anger is one that I need to talk about. Anger is one to talk about. And I've taken some time out to actually write a little bit more on anger here. Anger and how food can affect our mood. And I just like to ask us all these questions. I like us to just kind of think, let's just think. Have you ever been so angry before? Has this ever happened to you that you later regretted your action? Has that ever happened to anyone? Is anybody going to be bold enough to just acknowledge in the house? I've been there, that I've been so angry before, and later I regretted being that angry. I'm like, why did I get annoyed? Am I the only one in the house? It looks like every other person, they're perfect in their anger. They know how to manage their anger, and there's no problem at all. I know most of us would have been there before. What if I told you today that, what if I told you today that that the food you eat can actually help to control your anger? Would you believe that? Would you believe that if I told you today that the food that you eat can actually help to control your anger? Can anybody believe that? Do we believe that? Anybody in the house? You can unmute and say yes. I don't want it to look like I'm just talking to myself.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
maybe if you are not if
I'm
you are
not
not
too sure.
hungry, your anger will be less.
There are some foods that can actually help to regulate there are some foods that can actually help to regulate what we eat, regulate our anger. But it's not just eating them as a one-off, but it's actually eating them consistently so that they have helped to build the right nutrients in our brain. There are researches that suggest that diet can be used to partially control anger, and I use that word partial, as a caveat. When food is ingested into the body, it is broken down into various constituents, some of which have been shown to affect our moods. Do you know that some foods can make you aggressive? Do you know that? So do we know that some foods can make us aggressive?
No, ma'am.
Yes? No?
No.
Okay, there's some foods can make us very, very aggressive. Some foods can. And we're going to learn about some of those today. So for those who may have issues with anger, we're in our Father's house, and it's okay for us to be honest with ourselves. One of the key things that I usually advise people to do is to watch their diet, to avoid some foods. Some foods can actually make us very aggressive, while some foods can actually help to balance the mood swings, especially for those who experience mood swings. For the ladies in the house who are premenopausal, perimenopausal, or menopausal, there's a there's the menopausal and perimenopausal. The food we eat, we need to watch it. Because oftentimes what happens is that part of the symptoms of menopause is mood swings. Yep, mood swings. And oftentimes those mood swings are extremely uncontrollable because it's not you per se. It's a chemical in the brain that has just gone totally wired. And from 1 minute you're happy, next minute you're just suddenly weepy. I'll say the same thing for our adolescents in the house as well. We need to watch the food we eat. For us as parents, we need to make sure that we're looking out for them, that we avoid these foods that can actually cause excessive anger. I just want to share the screen. Okay, so causes and anger. We all know that our tolerance is different. I've mentioned that so many things actually determine how we react. Some people are very easily angered, while some, they can tolerate ill treatment towards them, and they won't be very angry. Anger can result because of disappointment, a hurt, or a fear. Expression of anger is one that is normal. It is normal to be angry. It's a normal human expression. What is dangerous about it, and the Bible tells us as well, is that too much of it can have mental health consequences. Anger just triggers some physiological changes that will spike the release of adrenaline, and which is the fight or flight hormone. And you don't want to have your adrenaline pumping up all the time, because what adrenaline does is that it's accompanied by symptoms like tension. You become very tense. There's hypertension and there's depression. And I'd like to ask these words: what is behind your day? If you look at the screen, the way I've captured it is D, anger. What is behind anger? Of course, where a person is annoyed, when there's rage, when there's hatred, when a person is aggravated, when a person is irritated, when a person is vexed, when a person is aggressive, or when they're a victim of manipulation, when they're a victim of antagonism, or when a person is exasperated. These are some of the factors behind our anger. But we should not forget that D is just anger, is just one word away from danger. Add D behind anger, and you have danger. And that is why it is really important to make sure that we measure it. The Bible tells us something. Like I said, it is not a sin to be annoyed, it's a sin to be angry. But it tells us very clearly here, be angry, but do not sin. And the way to that, do not let the sun go down on your anger. We should not allow the sun to go down on our anger at all. We should eat, and not only what we eat that makes us angry, but what we don't eat as well can provoke an aggressive response. If we all remember this word, I like cliches. It says an angry man is a hungry man. A research finding showed that people who were hungry were more prone to choose. And that is why I talked about the need for us to make sure that we're eating regularly. Don't let your eating pattern should not be haphazard. So you have breakfast today at 12 o'clock, and the next day you have it at 7, and the next day you have it at 10. You are not teaching your body a routine. It falls out of place because your body doesn't know whether to expect food at 10, at 7, or 12. Apart from the days that you are fasting, you need to put a cycle, a regularity in when you eat. And you allow just about 1 hour before, 1 hour difference. Don't let it be too concentrated and it's like 3 hours away. So you don't eat your breakfast until 12. And then the next morning at 6 a.m. you're eating breakfast. You're confusing the body. A research scientists suggest that the feeling in our stomach is not isolated from the rest of our body. It does have severe impact on our heart, our brain, and our lungs. Anger management. There's another study that links an increase in trans fatty acid intake to increase in aggression. Does anybody know what trans fatty acids are? Does anybody know what trans fatty acids are? If you know them, you can shout it out. They're the bad fats. They are the bad fats that are not good for us. And some of those are the kind of fats that you see in the oil that we eat, and we need to be very careful about the type of oil that we eat. And that's why often comment that when we cook and stew, especially us Africans, don't use too much palm oil or too much oil. And before you cook, try not to cook the oil for too long. Yorubas will say that they want to fry the oil. So they want to, especially when you use the red oil, you want to fry it. You denature it absolutely. And the denaturing of it turns it from a polysaturated fat into a trans fatty acid. And that's not what you want. So there's some foods that can actually affect us. This is likely because the buildup of trans fatty acids decreases the ability of the brain to utilize the omega fatty acids. So you're eating all the omega-3 foods. But if you eat the trans fatty acids as well, what it will do is that it will inhibit the effects of the nutrient from the omega fatty acids. So we need to try and balance it and not take too much. If we can avoid it, we avoid it. There's also been proven it has also been proven that there's a relationship between deficiency of omega-3 and depression, which also adds to irritability. Okay, let me share this now. So foods that help with anger management. Some of the foods that help with anger management. So for some of us who may be struggling with uncontrollable anger, you don't know why you just get angry, any little thing, you're snappy and all of that. Anger management diet does not involve any drastic changes in food. He said, what is that? Just modify your food. And what is said is that eat fruits and vegetables regularly. Be conscious about lots more fruit and vegetables in our food. We need to, especially us Africans, choose foods that are close. Avoid over-processed food. A good example is, all of us that will go to the shops and we buy all those apple juice drinks. So, because it's full of sugar. It's full of simple sugar that is not healthy for us. One that I've stopped is those drinks at all. I don't buy them at home because it releases sugar directly into the bloodstream. Pumps you up, and then you get the sugar rush. It's only there for a while. It's not a slow release. The natural apple will release sugar into your bloodstream gradually, rushed way, like the apple juice will. Add a sprinkle of fruit rich in magnesium, like spinach. So thank God for the Igbo life we live here. When you go to the shop, you find washed spinach. Just buy them let them be in your fridge in in your fridge all the time. When you eat your rice, balance it. When you have your plate of food, let half of what is on that plate be with vegetables and fruits. Let it be vegetables, half of the plate. Portion control is really important, very, very important. Pumpkin as well, pumpkin seeds, we have them, they sell them in the shop. Pumpkin seeds actually helps to support sleep for those who have insomnia, who find it difficult to sleep. Try eating pumpkin seeds. It's really, really good. It's also important for you to check your vitamin D level. I'll share my experience with you. So about a year and a half ago, no, 2 years ago, I used to get this itch on my skin. Initially, I thought it was hives. So suddenly there'll be an itch around in one particular area in my skin. And then I'll scratch it, and then it would be like, it would look like eczema, but it's not eczema. And then it would disappear. And then so I went to see the GP, and I met this Chinese GP who said, oh, it's very deficient in vitamin D. I argued with him. I said, no, I believe that because I tried all kinds of things. In fact, I was insisting that you should do an allergy test for that. I said, I want an allergy test. They said, no, you don't need an allergy test. I want you to do a vitamin D level test. Do you know when they did the test, I actually found out that I was actually very low in vitamin D. And of course, because of COVID that is out there, a lot of us know and we've been told the importance of vitamin D. So can we please make sure that whether you eat it directly or you take it as a supplement, vitamin D is very, very good when a person has mood disorder and when a person is experiencing undue anger that cannot explain. I need to sound this caveat out, however, that there's no single food or diet that has been scientifically proven to fight depression. So all that I'm saying is that the food that we're talking about will be complementary therapies to whatever other things the doctor may have said. There is research, and I've talked about this research previously, that there is obviously an impact and there's a role that the food we eat has on our mental well-being, both mental and also physical health. Some food groups can instantly give you a better mood, but overall and lasting treatment of the symptoms of depression and anxiety will depend on a healthy diet. So it's about making sure that we maintain a healthy diet all through. The standard medical treatment options for it's usually therapy, medication, and self-care. But can I say that we add another bit to that, and that is our diet. So when you go to the doctor will recommend medication, okay, therapy, they will recommend either CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, or they'll tell you to do self-care. I'd just like to say that we need to diet one of our therapies as well. I believe very strongly that our diet should be one of our therapies as well. There's a new branch of psychiatry now called nutritional psychiatry. They're actually looking at the importance of food. So it's a dietary pattern characterized by high intake of foods, vegetable and whole grain, fish, olive oil, low-fat dairy, and antioxidants, and low intakes of animal food. It was apparently associated with decreased risk of depression. So when you know that you're prone, so for example, remember when I had the first session, I talked about the debate between nature and nurture, that yes, there may be family history of depression, but however, that can be managed. If we do all of this, that can be managed. If we make sure that we put a dietary pattern in place, where there's a high intake of fruits, of vegetables, of whole grain, where we eat olive oil, and there's very reduced intake of animal food, it can actually help. Using foods to enhance our mood, the importance of food is all there. 2 types of food. That's some of the studies that I said I was going to share with you earlier. I don't want to go into details about that. The complex chemistry of depression and anxiety. Depression and anxiety are linked to other factors which make it difficult to say with certainty that changing your diet can change your mood. I mentioned that. Your nutritional lifestyle can directly impact on your health, directly impact on your mood too. I need to sound this warning as well. Well, not exactly a warning, but one of the things they say that studies have shown that people who are obese have an increased likelihood of being depressed. And we just need to watch out for that, especially for our children. We need to make sure that we're teaching them all the right foods, the right things to eat. And I need to sound this caveat. I used to be a caffeine junkie. When you say caffeine junkie, I could not start my day without coffee, especially when I get to work. The first thing I want to do when I get to work after I put everything down is to go and get a cup of coffee, sit down. I needed to have that caffeine rush. But do you know what? Caffeine is often a go-to when you need a burst of energy. It is stimulating, it can actually stimulate, but do you know that it can disturb your sleep? It can trigger anxiety and also depressive symptoms. If you drink a lot of coffee, tea, cola, including Coca-Cola, or any cola drinks, other energy drinks, you may want to try swapping them for the non-caffeinated ones. So when you go for tea, take the non-caffeinated ones. The herbal teas are good. Take the decaffeinated coffee as well. It helps as well. And I'm going to round this up. I know I've not specifically spoken about our African foods, but then I'll say that I'll talk about that when I answer the questions, because I'm sure you probably have questions to ask. The summary of all of this today is that there is a link between our gut health, that is the food we eat, and our mental health. And our guts, that is our stomach, is actually dubbed the second brain. It's our digestive system that produces over 90% of the serotonin, that is the happy hormone in our body. It's produced from our stomach, not from our brain. Our gut can actually also affect our immunity and resilience to stress, which can both affect our mood. Having a healthy digestive system helps to ensure we're able to absorb all the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients our brains need to thrive. When you are feeling stressed or anxious, we sometimes feel it in our guts. And that is why it is important, very, very important for us to talk about the link between our food and our mood. Thank you so much for listening to me. I've tried to rush through this as much as I can. I've tried to rush through this. I'm sure my sisters, you'd have some questions for me. I'll be surprised if you don't have any questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think if you have any question, we can send it on the chat box, and if you want to ask, you can ask, But can I just ask you some questions, please?
Yes, sir.
You emphasize on vegetables. We, like Africa, we have a 40 rule, and sometimes it's overcooked. In the sense that we want it fresh, we say fresh a 40 rule, and at the end of the day, the 40 rule lasts for 3 or 4 days. And we put it in the freezer, we warm it again. Does it have any effect at all? Considering all the ingredient has been put in, that we thought maybe it will give us a kind of good that will give us energy or protein and other stuff. But at the end of the day, we warm it too much, and it lasts 3 or 4 days. Because then another thing is banana. I read it somewhere that essence of banana can cause diabetics, that contains a lot of sugar, and we are advised that even in the process of blending it, we should not blend it with certain fruits.
Yep.
Because of the sugar content, and because of that, I run away from banana, because it's considered to be too sugary.
Okay, I'll balance a little bit. So the first question you asked.
Then the oil, we have different kind of olive oil. When you go to the store, you see one of 5 pounds, you see one of 2 pounds, you see one of 1 pound. So which one do we choose, or what do we look for if we want to buy genuine olive oil?
Okay. Thank you, sir. I will answer the question. The first one, vegetable. Vegetables are meant to be eaten as near nature as possible, and not meant to be overcooked at all. In fact, they're not meant to be warming, because by the time you're doing all of this warming, it's lost all the nutrients. Tasting, but there's no benefit coming out from it. It's not just the vegetables that we don't need to warm too much. It's also our stew. We have this habit, especially us Africans, When we're cooking a stew, when we blend the pepper, the onions, and the the red pepper, the onions, and also the other one, the
Scotch bonnet. Scotch
scotch
bonnet.
bonnet. Thank you, ma. The scotch bonnet. We now put it on the fire and we cook it for the next 30 minutes. Do you know you've taken everything out? You've taken all the nutrients out. Ideally, you should not boil it for more than 10-15 minutes. In fact, it should not even be boiled for long. It should not be boiled for too long. Because we eat orange, we eat onions fresh. We can eat tomatoes fresh. You eat the only thing you will not eat fresh is the scotch bonnet. But the red pepper, the sweet pepper, you eat fresh. So why do you need to overboil? We lose all of the nutrients when we overboil. So my advice, my personal advice, is eat according to this thing I said earlier. Eat as near nature as possible. Don't overboil the food. Your vegetables, eat them as fresh as possible. Cook. You can cook them into little bowls and put them in the freezer and bring it out when you need to eat it, but not to keep warming and warming and warming. And then if you go back to Africa, in Africa, you know, we had our own nature's way of doing things. We used to go to the backyard and we pluck straight vegetable right from there. Things were organic, fresh. What we eat here are not as organic as what we eat in Africa. But the only thing I will say is that let's just balance it and not try to heat, because heat the nature's food. The second question you asked about banana, yes, you're right, that those who are diabetic should as much as possible avoid eating banana, very true. But however, don't forget I talked about regularity as well. So if you've not eaten any food and you eat banana as the first thing in the day, the sugar rush will go straight into your bloodstream. And that's not advisable. But if you eat it as part of your cereal, not too much, as part of your cereal, it's balanced, because it's balanced with the slow release antioxidants, the carbohydrates, the oil, the oats that we talked about earlier. So if a person is diabetic, avoid banana. But banana actually contains nutrients that help to balance and push a dopamine level. It's actually one of the go-to fruits that I take when my mood is very, very low. I always make sure that there's banana at home. The last one is olive oil. One of the ways, I know people may say, not everything that's expensive is genuine. One of the ways in which you know a genuine thing, when you go to the shop, you know the ones that is genuine. I don't know the brand names offhand, but I know the genuine ones. Olive oil is not a cheap product at all. Genuine is not cheap, because the process of extracting the olive oil is a very expensive, hard process. So when you see a bottle, a 1 liter, and they're selling it for £1, you know straight away that it's not genuine olive oil. They've mixed other kinds of things there. I would find olive oil in a shop. I will not buy in any of those open market shops on the high street. I would only buy Morrison's, at Sainsbury's, at whichever shop you shop in. And they always have grades. So that's about olive oil. The cheap ones I would not go for, and I would only buy in a shop where I know that they have regulatory, they have compliance and regulatory standards there where they have to follow. And they would have been sure that that's a genuine olive oil. They would not come out fake for us or to us. Thank you. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Somebody asked a question here and said, is it okay to add water into the juice to reduce the sugar level? It is not okay, ma, because the sugar is still there. It is better where you can. Yes, it will reduce the sugar level, but I would just say that it is better when you can to take the juice directly, to go for the natural juice, than to use the canned, than to use either the canned one or the bottled one or the packaged one. Because it's not just the fact that there's sugar, that there's some other additives they put in there. Some other chemicals that are not good for the way that is there. There's the preservatives that they put into it to preserve the taste. There's a coloring as well. They put so much coloring in it that you don't even want to know what goes into all of those things. So my advice is all of those juices, pack them to the side. My advice. You can do it once in a yellow moon, you know, because sometimes it's okay to give yourself a pat in the back and, you know, but I would just, my advice is as much as possible avoid them if you can.
Is there any more question?
Yes.
Another thing is, you go to the market and you want to buy something, they say added sugar. Is it safe to buy? Not, non, is it no added sugar or something like that? That it gives impression that sugar is not added. So can we just buy it because it's stated there?
They replace that sugar with other types of sugars that are not very healthy. So it's like the no sugar Coke. And then what
Yes.
they end up putting in there are equally unhealthy. It's as dangerous as the sugar. So they put aspartame. They put what's this other one that they use that you put as the drop in drinks. They put all of those things there. If we can avoid it, that's what I'll say. If you can, let's avoid it. If we can.
What about Diet Coke? Because
That's what I just diet Coke is insane. It's as dangerous. Diet Coke is full of aspartame. It's as dangerous. Another chemical sugars to sweeten it. It is the coloring, the black things.
apart from water, because
There's so many drinks that we can do apart from water. There are Ribena is very good. You can mix Ribena. Ribena is good. Vimto is good. They're quite a lot. Vimto is very, very good. The sweetener, the coloring is almost nil, and they're healthy. So I encourage squash at home. If you feel like eating something sweet, I encourage squash instead of the fizzy drink. The carbonated gas in those drinks are not healthy at all. They're not healthy at all. We need to avoid them when we can.
thank you very
I have a
much.
question.
Let me not dominate the
I
whole
have
stuff.
a question.
The sparkling water, what do you see to that?
That's okay. It's just still going back to the carbonated gas in the sparkling water. Yes, it will give you a feel good taste, especially I do that. I always buy sparkling, not always. I buy sparkling water, and I mix it with Vimto or with Ribena, just to sweeten the taste a little bit once in a while. But however, I do not forget the fact that the gas there goes straight into the stomach, and these are some of the things that extend the stomach, and we need to be careful about it.
Yeah.
It can give people what we call beer belly. Yes, you don't drink beer, but the same effect of the carbonated gas that is pushed inside still goes into the stomach as well. So if we can once in a while, there's nothing bad. It's the consistency and these are things we just need to watch out for.
Pastor, can I just ask a question real quick?
Yes, please.
Okay, Ma, what's your take on saturated fatty acids? So like milk, cheese, butter. I've heard that, or I've studied that they sometimes contribute to cardiovascular diseases like atherosclerosis. A lot of fats goes into the body and builds up and then causes health problems for people. So what's your take on these things?
Okay, I'm just going to quickly go back to my screen earlier, and this, I know there's been loads of talk around fatty foods, about avoiding them, but we need to balance it, because oftentimes what happens to us is that I talked about portion control earlier.
Yeah.
Everything we take has to be taken in moderation. It still does not remove the fact that we need fat for our brain to produce, to give our, we need fat, give our the health it needs to have, we need it, but it's got to be a balanced type of fat. So you talked about cheese, something that we can eat, but it's got to be at a moderate level, not too much. Saturated fat, some are not good, I will say that, but however, it's about a balance. It is about having a balance in there. For me, for example, I'm allergic to dairy products. Not exactly allergic. I would say allergic per se. But I reduce my amount of dairy products that I eat. I avoid as much as possible taking milk, because I break out in pimples, in acne when that is me. It just doesn't go well with my body. But however, I make sure that other healthy fats I take them. There are nuts. There's sesame nuts. There's walnut. There are different type of nuts in which you can get those from. And all of those are actually fatty, they're actually saturated fats. But you need to take them in moderation. That's what's important. Portion control, I always emphasize. We need to take everything in moderation. Everything in moderation. And one of the things that dietitians often say, especially for us Africans, that we like our amala and eba, the size of the scoop of the pounded yam or the eba or the amala, it should not be bigger than the size of your hand. It should not be bigger than the size of your hand. And that is what you should be eating, nothing more than that. A lot of what happens to us is training the mind. One of the things that I've learned to do personally, for example, is I've learned to train my body and train my mind to cut off. I do not eat because I want to eat. Don't forget that first thing that I said when we started this presentation, that you don't eat to live. So because you don't eat to live, yes, regulate your food morning, afternoon, evening. It's good to have a good cycle and maybe have some healthy snacks in between. But portion control is really, really important. It's a lot of junk, my people. When I go to parties and I see those people pile up their plates, I shudder. Let it be have vegetable, no, not fruits. You eat vegetable and fruit, but fruit should be eaten separately. Vegetable and your food, let it be half vegetables. You want to eat your rice, put sweet corn by the side, sweet corn. Let sweet corn be 1/4 of the plate, add something else to the side. We just need to try and balance it. It's a control, it's a mind thing that we need to work on. We need to learn a new taste. And don't forget, we have the responsibility to present our bodies as living sacrifice unto God. And I'll just go back to that scripture that I read earlier, which for me is always a reminder about the responsibility that I have to keeping this body. We all have the responsibility to making sure that we keep the body. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31, it says, so whether you eat or drink, whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Romans 14:20 says, do not destroy the work of God for the sake of food. So this body that because you love the food, because it is sweet, don't destroy the work of God. All food is clean, but it is wrong for a person to eat anything that will cause your body, not just somebody else, that will cause you to stumble health-wise. And that for me is really important. We have a responsibility. In as much as communicating, adultery, over-exaggerating, exaggerating, and all of those things, we have a responsibility as well to making sure that what we put into this body is responsible. We have a responsibility to make sure that what we body is right. Because it's the temple of God. That's where he lives. He doesn't live in buildings any longer. He lives here in us. Hallelujah. Okay, Pastor Viola, you have a question, ma? Your hand is up. Does anybody else have a question? Please feel free. The last time we rushed through, I'm going to put.
I have a question, ma.
Okay, ma. Please go ahead, ma.
The question is, sorry, maybe you should just unmute yourself there. Then I'll mute myself. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very clearly.
Okay, sorry, man. I have loads of questions. Number one, like if somebody says, "Oh, I'm eating healthy," and eat a lot of vegetables and load the plates with loads of vegetables and stuff like that. Like a portion that maybe 4 people will eat. Is that okay? Even though it's vegetable. Number one.
That's okay. As long as remember what we read, do it all to the glory of God.
Okay.
Make sure it is a portion that is not reflecting gluttony. As long as it's vegetables, you can eat as much. It must just not reflect gluttony. Why are you eating? Because you see the free vegetables, so you must eat until your stomach is full and you can no longer get up. Those are the things we need to watch. Why are we eating? Is it to the glory of God? That question should always be at the back of our mind.
The second one is because we like I am, don't let me say we are, me now. I am like used to like in those days like rice, gari, eba, mala,
Indomie
banga.
noodles.
Yeah, Indomie noodles.
Please
Yeah,
run away from Indomie noodles now.
I
Run
went
away
to,
from Indomie noodles.
I went off it long time ago. I've not eaten it for like maybe 4 or 5 years now.
Good.
That one. But I'm thinking because like during this pandemic, I like changed my diet, and I'm thinking like, is it possible to like eat just vegetable, like fish by the side of it, and avoid all those rice and all those, all those things because of the is it just a composition or the nutrient that it gives, too much carbohydrate and everything like that. Is it possible to like just eat like veg and protein and I do away with carbohydrates because of all these big stomach and big, oversize and stuff like that? I don't know. Do you understand? Or maybe you just like eat like eba once in a week, just to avoid things like that. I don't, yeah.
There are lots of alternatives that we can use to replace our rice.
Thank you.
I don't know if you've heard of bulgur. Bulgur is a wheat product, and wheat we know is fantastic. It tastes just like rice. It is very healthy. It is a
What is
slow
it called?
bulgur, Bulgur.
Okay.
Bulgur. It tastes just like rice. You can do it as jollof rice, fried rice, do it as everything. It is very, very healthy because it's wheat. It's slow release. It is the carbohydrate. It's not just carbohydrate that is it's a whole food. One of the things that we need to do is to try and be creative with our food. This is another one that a lot of us are not very creative around. I know it's because it's a bit difficult to cook. It takes longer to cook, or like rice, you can just pour rice on it and put your stew and the food is ready. But there are different ways to cook rice, that we can do beans, different ways. And do you know that there are also bean substitutes? At the moment now, beans is quite expensive. About our African beans, it's quite expensive. For you to get 2 kilograms of beans now, I think it's about £8 or £10. Meanwhile, you can buy lentils. If you go into Morris's or any of the shops, those beans products there, they will give you the same effect as for your moimoi or your akara. Lentils, small lentils will give you the same effect. I've done moimoi with lentils. You can do akara with lentils and lots of other beans products when you cook them. So it's about us being creative. And if you go onto YouTube, you see a lot of alternative foods that we Africans can eat. So you only need to type it in the search box and it will come up. Indomie noodles, like I said.
Sorry, ma. Please continue. Sorry.
Indomie noodles. I was saying, please avoid Indomie noodles, especially the one from Nigeria. The content is not full wheat, so I always say to people, avoid it. Avoid it. I don't want to go into conspiracy theories around Indomie noodles, but they're not as healthy as they project it to be. It's good taste. Children like it. It's easy to cook very fast, but it's not as healthy.
You made mention of meat.
Yes, sir.
And people said wheat is alternative to eba. And a lot of people rush into taking wheat. Then I Googled to find out what wheat contains. And I found out that wheat contains some gluten, which is not really healthy. So what's your take with regards to this?
Not with bulgur though. Yes, I know that wheat contains gluten, but the way wheat is processed is different from it's different from the end product. It differs from person to person. If a person is not gluten tolerant, I would suggest you don't touch wheat and you listen to what your GP has. Gluten tolerant, bulgur rice is as good. Bulgur rice is as good. It's a healthy form of wheat. It's the gluten level is not high, and I would like to believe that there's some gluten-free bulgur wheat as well. There's some gluten-free ones. Yeah, there are some gluten-free ones. Sister Fumi, did you want to ask a
Hello,
question?
ma. Hello, ma. God bless you, ma.
Amen.
I wanted to ask about bread because I love bread a lot. I eat a lot of bread.
Ah,
It's one of my best food. But I
bread.
eat brown bread, all those wheat one. I wanted to know if bread is bad for you as well.
Bread is not bad. It all depends on the type of bread that you're eating. If it's wheat bread, which is usually brown bread, that's fine. The only challenge, for me personally, I've stopped eating bread for a while now. And the reason being that because of I can't remember the name of there's a particular ingredient there. It actually causes bloating. It bloats me up and it constipates as well. And I found out that in my weight management journey, I absolutely run away from bread because the little bread, the calories it piles on you, you don't want to go there. So personally, I mean, there's nothing scientific about it. This is just me. I just personally run away from bread. But once in a while, it's okay to just eat the bread with some avocado with avocados. Once in a while, wheat bread is good. I will say the white flour bread I run away from. White flour generally I run away from because it's been totally denatured. All the benefits are no longer really there. It's mainly high carbohydrates. I hope I've answered your question, ma.
Yes, ma. Thank you, ma.
Any other question? I've put the feedback form. Thank you, like I said earlier, to those who responded the first time. Thank you so much. I put the feedback form on the corner there, and I'm going to send it to Pastor Dara later. If you could kindly please share it to those who attended today. I know we've had about 30 people in and out, 30 people in and out. It would be nice to get a feedback. It would be nice to get a feedback from everybody. I know we've had more time today compared to the first time. I had to rush through some of it because, like you saw, it was quite a lot of information to process, and I was speaking so fast at the stage. My apologies. I just had to do that. But like I said at the beginning, I know that there may be some of us who do not have a very positive relationship with food at the moment, and some of us might be struggling. Some of us might be struggling with food. I want to talk about struggling with food. It's about struggling with what portion am I taking? Is this too bad? Is this too much? Is this too little? And some may actually be having gradual issues of yeah. Feel free to contact Pastor Dara, and Pastor Dara I'm more than happy for you to share my details with whoever contacts you, sir. And I'm more than happy to work with you and talk you through it. Because it is a mental thing as well. Like I said, we need to be able to reset our mind and condition our mind. It's not exactly an easy when the way our mind has been conditioned for over 40 something, 50 something, or 20 something years of our lives. And there's someone telling you that what you've done all your life is no longer right. All my life, I was taught that when you cook stew, the ororo, must be on the surface, it must top it. That shows that it's a good stew, you know. I was taught that when you do your eforiro, you must pour the palm oil. The palm oil must be on top. That was what I was taught all my life. I did not know that I could do eforiro without use. I did not know that I could actually cook eforiro without putting palm oil there. I did not know that I could eat bulgur rice and do it as jollof rice, as fried rice, whatever I want. I did not know that I could use couscous. I did not know a lot of things. Of course, it's a short class. This is an introductory thing. There are an introductory class on food and food. There are so many alternatives that we have in our community. So it's not really as easy to change a perception about food. It's not really easy, especially when you've been struggling with your weight. It's not really an easy thing at all, but it is doable. It is possible. It's about resetting the mind. It's about rethinking your relationship with food. I had to do that. Rethink my relationship with food. I don't eat to live. I don't eat to survive. Eating is just part of my life. It's not like I must eat. Oh, no. I really get to a stage where I'm hungry these days because I've trained my body. And it's a mind thing. And it's something that it's a whole process. I can't talk about it today. But God would help all of us. Don't forget Proverbs 4:7. It says wisdom is a principal thing. That seek wisdom with all your understanding as well. Seek wisdom because it is the process of seeking wisdom that you understand what gives value to our lives. And that's why we're here this evening. So for the over 23 people that stayed in and you have listened to my boring speech, thank you so much. Boring, but sometimes some tough messages are not as exciting. We're not shouting, praise God, hallelujah. Somebody shout hallelujah again. Sometimes God's messages are mellowed and, it speaks to us in various ways. So thank you so much, my brothers and my sisters.
We've taken much of your time. We really appreciate for this extension given to us. We really appreciate you, ma. We don't take it for granted. Thank you very much. I know it costs a lot for that extra ability that you gave us.
That's okay.
We do appreciate. But finally, I, for one person, you talk about breakfast that should be regular.